our viewers should need to understand then that every time they see the word saved or salvation, they have to take it in its context. It doesn't always mean spiritual salvation. I'd like to have you, Dennis, explore a little more the diagram that we're looking at, because I think this setup is just perfect. There's another diagram further on in the book as well that kind of repeats this. But the whole concept of the being saved from something, from hell, to the present, from the power of sin, to the future, from the presence of sin, how do people get those things mixed up when they see it? And it can be very confusing for our viewers to understand a passage.
Yeah, no question. Well, partly one has to understand the word saved isn't only in reference to hell. But and that's why for the unbeliever, salvation is always future because they're not saved. Okay?
Correct.
So if you're drowning, you couldn't say I've been saved. No, you're drowning. It's not until you get saved that you can say I've been saved from drowning. Yeah, in the same way, Titus 3:5, not by works of righteousness which we have done, but according to his mercy, he saved us. Past tense. Ephesians 2:8-9, for by grace you have been saved. Past tense. Then when it comes to present tense, 1 Timothy 4:16, for example, Paul's talking to Timothy. Now, Timothy's been saved for years, and he was discipled by Paul. And he says, take heed to yourself and to the doctrine. Continue in this, for in doing this you will both save yourself and those that hear you. Well, clearly he's not talking about being saved from hell. That's already happened. And he's clearly not talking about saved in heaven because he's still on earth. He's talking about being saved from the damaging effects of the sin nature and sinful choices in our lives. By the way, James does the same thing there in James 1:21. And this again is where I was talking with Gabriel earlier there about James. You know, it's really helpful when you recognize again in verse 18, he has said, of his own will, God's will, he brought us forth. We were born again by the word of truth, that we, James includes himself, might be a kind of first fruits of his creatures. So then, my beloved brethren. See, we've asked before, how do we know what it's referring to? Well, when he's talking to believers who have already been saved, either he's reminding them of what's happened, past tense, or he's talking about what God wants to happen now in their Christian life. So he says, so then, my beloved brethren, let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath, for the wrath of man does not produce the righteousness of God. Therefore, lay aside all filthiness and overflow of wickedness, and receive with meekness the implanted word, which is able to save your souls. Well, he's already said they've been born again. He's already called them brethren. They've already been saved from hell. He's talking about being saved from the damaging effects of sin, and especially in the context of James, where they had been defrauded by the rich, and they were going to take things into their own hands. And he's saying, if you do that, you're going to make a mess out of things, because sin complicates life. I want you to be delivered from those effects of sin in your life.